Well, good evening and thank you for coming to the June meeting of the San Diego DX Club. We have a great program on tap tonight with Craig K9CT. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Dennis N6KI. Everyone, please remove their
Yep.
It's over here, Dennis.
Where? Oh, it's over there. There's. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball.
As I said, Craig K9CT is our speaker this evening, and he's a well-known contester. Anyone that's been in any contest in the last I don't know how many years has worked Craig. I've met him like probably a million other hams at Visalia and also at Dayton. I'm going to knight him the mayor of 20 meters because he's always shaking hands of everybody at these meetings. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Craig, and we have an interesting talk with a tour of his station, as I understand, K9CT. So, Craig, take it away.
Okay, and I'm okay to share?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I want to share, there's something I want to click, share sound. There we go. I always have to remember this. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. See, I did it just for you guys. And I got to tell you, my last grid for FFMA was a military base off the coast of San Diego. Can you believe that? On 6 meters, 488 grids. My last one was off the coast of San Diego. So
Was that K6ZH that you worked over there?
You would
Okay.
say that. I don't remember. It was a
Okay.
military tech.
Oh,
And what was crazy about that, I had just worked the second to the last grid on an island up the coast from you guys. And this guy and I we tried the day before this, and I said, the band is open because it takes double hop E to work you guys. And he had hurt himself and he was at a hospital in San Diego. And he jumped on the plane, went over there, they dropped him off. He ran to the station and worked me. So isn't that awesome? So I fond memories of that. Anyhow, thanks for inviting me tonight. Been a ham a long time. I just love this hobby. You can tell I'm really enthusiastic about it. I'm 73, but I'm still, 15 years old. I started when I was 14 years old, and the first thing I ran into was a novice roundup. And my first DX was some Polish guy, and I ran downstairs and screamed to my mother that I talked to Poland, and I bit the contest and the DXing bug almost instantly on CW. So anyhow, I'm very active in DXing myself, like you guys. I like to go on DXpeditions. I actually, the last presentation I made, they asked me how many I went on, and I couldn't answer that. So I actually counted them up, and I was on 13 of them. So if you go to my QRZ page, you can take a look, and there's several of them that were top 10. So I'm very excited that I got a chance to go on top 10 DXpeditions. Amsterdam Island was probably one that you guys would remember. And Navassa Island was at the time we went was number 2. And I got it in both cases. I went with K4UEE Bob. In fact, he was my roommate on Amsterdam. So I had some great DXing experiences. And then, of course, contesting. I really like it. It's a lot of fun. And I appreciate all the guys in California. The California QSO Party is one of my absolute favorite contests. You guys do a fantastic job. You put on a great party. So thank you very much for everything you guys do. So my goal when I started this was to build a competitive contest. And when I say DX station, I wanted to be able to work DX. And as you very well know, you always want to have that 1 dB more than your buddy across town or whatever to get through a pile up or whatever. When I first started this, I was interested in, of course, building a DX station a station that could work DX on any band that counted for DX CC challenge. And then, of course, contesting, I had to figure that out. So I'll get into that. And of course, ultimately, I ended up building a multi-2 station and an SO2R station. So that's different. You can do multis here, but that wasn't my goal. When I was out doing research, I found out everybody said you're going to have a hard time getting operators to do multi. So you got to aim at multi-2. And of course, SO2R is a single operator 2 radio. And for those that don't know, I'll explain that. But obviously, anything as I have used the station, rate is number one. How many stations can you work in an hour? And then, of course, being able to work the multipliers, because they make a huge difference in your score. And of course, my personal thing is chasing the DXCC challenge. So when I first started this, my goals were to build a competitive contest in DX station, do multi-2, multi-1, or SO2R. And of course, after traveling around and operating at other stations and visiting other stations, I said, if I'm going to design this, I want to make sure that it's very friendly to the operators, that it's ergonomic, the lighting is right, the heating and cooling is right, and that they felt like home. That when, in other words, having a proper bathroom, sleeping, their own bed, we have a TV, you can watch games, because most contest season is in basketball or football season.
I don't know how to resume. When I minimize Zoom, I can't bring it back.
Hello?
What the hell?
You get it figured out? Anyhow, so I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure some of you guys read NCT.
I'm gonna have to log on again, because when I minimize Zoom, I can't bring it back for some reason.
I don't know. All right.
So anyhow, I wrote an article for NCJ magazine on.
Okay, I'm just gonna relog in.
Okay.
Jerry, can we mute him? Mute, I think it's Patrick.
So I wrote an article for NCJ, so I'd highly recommend that you read that. I kind of covered A to Z about the team operate aspect of multi-2, but
Not him.
Not him. This is really sorry.
okay, can you hear me now? Okay, so and it's just like de-expeditioning. When you're going to put together a team for a de-expedition or for contesting, they really need to be socially compatible, they need to be competitive, and they need to be experienced. So the same thing, for my own station. And again, I pick contests that work for our teams. I understand the propagation for the event, and I want to compete based upon rate and multipliers. So one of the things that I found over the time is, after many years of contesting, that there's always some issue. And so this is always something that you would do even in business or anything that you do. You want to document, prioritize, analyze, and then resolve it. So after every contest, that's the first discussion, is how could we have made one more QSO or 2 more QSOs, or what problems did we have? So improvement, of course, is the same thing you've heard before. How can we improve rate? How can we improve the number of multipliers? The maintenance of the station, and then the surprises that come about that I've suffered with over the years. And to be honest with you, they're now less and less and less, because I've learned so many lessons from the lightning, power surges, and storm damage that I've had. And so iteratively, I've made improvements. I'm going to start here. This was my blank sheet of paper. I'm going to take my mouse, and right here, this rectangle right here is the property that I bought. It's 20 acres. And I bought it at an auction, but it was nobody would bid on it except me. because I thought it'd make a great ham radio station. And I had a lot of cleanup to do, so I'll show you the next. In 2010, you can clean. I just cleaned it all up. I took all the trees out, everything. And if you look at the north side of the building here, you can actually see we took out 55 tons of tires. They're stacked up right here, and I had to hire trucks and have them recycled and turned into probably tracks around high school. The running tracks is probably what it turned into. But anyhow, that was a horse barn and all the horse barns and stuff. And I left the horse barn where they trained people on how to ride horses. And so that's when it was clean. In 2011, excuse me, 2012, everything was up that you can see here. And I'll start at the top. It's the first thing you see right here is a 160 meter 5-element array. And you can see 7 miles of radial wire all the way around all of those elements. So that is I can control that so that it's aimed at Europe, South America, VKZL, and then of course Japan in the quadrants that you can see there. And that's actually a 3-element array with passive elements on a driven element. So there's a director and a reflector as it rotates. Here is and what I should note is the shack is down here, and you'll notice the farthest away is the low frequencies because of the loss in the helix. I try to keep everything less than 0.5 dB of loss. So there's 8,000 feet of 1 5/8 buried to the base of each tower. And thank goodness for K9HMB and his surplus stock of 1 5/8. I'll put it that way. This is a 40-meter stack. There's 4/4, 20-meter stack, 6/6/6. Here's the 15-meter stack, which is 7/7/7. And at the time that this was put up, there was also an 80-meter Yagi on top of that, which I soon took down. And right here is the 80-meter 4-square, and you can see the 5 miles of wire that's buried into the ground. And then the multiplier stack was 2 stepper DB42s, and then right here was a 3 stack of the 10-meter Yagis, which was 8/8/8. Subsequent, by the way, these are also VHF towers because they're the closest. So I have also 6 through 1296 on this tower, and then over here is a 2-meter EME 4 by whatever, I don't remember how many elements, but it's dual polarity. So this is what it looks like from a plane, so that you can actually better see what it looks like. But that was alfalfa field, and now mostly it's grass, and I mow it at least 3 or 4 times a year completely, but it just is real flat. And subsequent to that, I bought this farm too. I made a deal with a lady that owned this property, and I rent this house to somebody, and the farmer farms this, and then when he takes out his crops, I put in beverages over here. So you can see what I did in 2024. Well, actually during COVID, I got a little bored, and I thought, what can I do to improve the station? And one of the things I decided to do, I was going to actually initially take down the DB42s and upgrade them because they had come out with brand new. I assume everybody knows what the stepper DB42s are. And the top stepper I had 80 through 6 on, and then the bottom stepper I had was 40 through 6. But they had come out with new loops, and they had come out with several new things to improve the antenna. And at the time, I thought, you know what, I think maybe I'm going to not climb as much, because those antennas required more attention than any other antennas that I had. And I decided to actually sell them off. This was before I knew Stepper was not going to make them anymore. But and in the process, it made me think, now, what can I do to improve this station? So one of the things I did, and this is what's on the building permit, is that's a Luso tower that I put in. And the reason I did that was I decided to put a new 15-meter and 10-meter Yagi, 2 OWAs there. And then on the top, I put that 80-meter Yagi I said that I had taken down. And then I also put in a JK antenna for 12 and 17 on a long boom, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And then on this side over here, I put in a 6-meter EME array so that I can work the new countries that come up, so that I can keep going up on my totals on 6 meters, because it all counts as DXCC challenge. As of right now, I'm at 3,053. I just worked D2UY just a couple of days ago on 6-meter E. So it was a 1-minute opening. It was amazing. And then he was gone. And then down here, I have a US Tower 589, and that antenna rotates through the south. So you can work Africa, South America, XC, VKZL, and then of course we can bring it all the way around to JA. But the idea is to not point it up towards the other antennas. And the reason behind the design here is that the antennas that are, in other words, if you're on 40 and your partner operator is on 40, you will be aimed at, you'll be side to side with the antennas and much distance in between, and I'll show you that in a minute. The reason, when you're designing a station like this, one of the concerns you have, because you operate in band. So let's talk about multi-2. Multi-2 is 2 operators operating on 2 different bands at the same time. So so you're always on the most open bands, and you're running. You're calling CQ and people are calling you. And so you'll have, in order to really win though, you have to have partners, and your partners to the side will operate in band, and they'll work other stations, preferably multipliers that, so people, here you are calling CQ on one station, people are calling you at say 100 to 200 an hour, depending on how busy it is. And your partner will be looking for multipliers, and later in the contest, interleaving with you just to increase rate. So the problem with operating in band is no different than anything else. You can break a radio. You can get IMD. You'll get overload and blocking here. This is right here where about 0 dBm. And this is true of almost any particular radio. It doesn't matter who makes it. You'll start getting to the point where you start hearing mixed signals that do not really exist on that frequency. So as you tune across the band, you'll hear all kinds of junk. And this can happen at field day, for instance. This is where most people run into these issues, is a 100-watt radio, and you're only 100 feet from another 100-watt radio. And if you don't have any filters, you're just going to be blocking each other the whole time, and you can't talk to anybody. And this is where you want to put in filters from band to band. For instance, 100-watt radio, like at field day, is 50 dBm. So if you put in a 50 dB filter, you're only going to get it down to 0. But if each station puts a 50 dBm filter in, you'll get 100 dB of isolation. You'll get it clear down here. It's still a loud signal. It's above S9, but you will not burn up the radio, and you will not get IMD. You'll hear, like if somebody's on 40 meters, you'll hear a very loud second harmonic on 20 meters. But what happens in band, like the noise floor at typical, let's say 20 meters, go look at your S meter on your station, and you want it down, you want to try to get it down below 110 if you can. So most of the receivers are way below what your noise level is. So it doesn't matter how quiet your receiver is. What it matters is how quiet where you live is. And of course, we all know that we're getting more and more noise. And that's why I built a station out in the country, get away from as much noise. Unfortunately, I've noticed since I built the station that the noise level's rising and rising and rising all the time. So anyhow, this is a really important thing. And what I do is I have lots of filters, and the way I laid out the antennas and the towers is to maximize the isolation, both physically and pattern wise, and with filters, so that we don't cause problems. So this is what this is just to show you, all the antennas come in. This is what I'm working on the station. So you can see down at the bottom all the 1 5/8 coming in. And then it goes up and you can see the common ground and the lightning protection devices. And then, excuse me, all the high power filters that it goes through. And then there's two sets of antenna switches here. This is a 12 by 4, and then right here is an 8 by 2. And so what happens is the run station gets this switch, and then the partner stations run through this switch. And I by the way, I move this around depending on the contest. So you say, why is everything in one place? Because I use a server-based way of controlling everything. So you'll right above here is a computer, and it's a server, so that when you look at the station, the only cables going to the station is in this cable tray. See them coming down? There's very few cables. So it minimizes the amount of controls that you have. Now, this is my original station when I first started. So you can see Alpha 87As. Those are Ray Solutions low power filters. There's some micro ham stuff here, but you can see Elecraft and then the P3s and the monitors and the original chairs that we used. So this is what it looked like in the back and you can see all of the chokes and different things that have been done over the years. This is just another picture of it when I had a solid state amp, the SPE. That actually is the one that we took to Wake Island, and I kept it for a while because I wanted a quick amplifier. I could hardly stand waiting 3 minutes for an 87A to warm up, so I had to. I decided to keep that 2K SPE, so I had that for quite a while. This is what it more or less looks like right now. And of course, this is all flex radio gear. And I'm going to show another picture later, I think. But you can see actually on the left here, that is a 6500 behind with a Maestro. But currently, everything in here is 8600s all the way across, all four 8600s. And you can see I have TGXL, PGXL, still the same filters because those are W3NQN filters. Are really, really good filters. And everything is run automatically through programming. So all switching is done automatically. If you switch bands, the antenna follows you, the filters follow you. You don't have to reach for anything. And you can see what it looks like now because see the end wall here. You can see the all the filters that are up here now. The steppers are gone because I took the two DB42s out. But you can see I actually have two stack matches here, and I'll explain what I do with that in a sec. So this is what it looks like when we're operating with four operators. The two guys that are closest to each other are the run operators. Now, every station's identical, by the way, so it wouldn't really matter. But the reason that they're sitting right there is if he moves a station to here, he waves at him. There's going to be a pop-up anyhow that's going to occur because there's in N1MM, there's a way to send a message just by clicking and sending that station to your partner over here. But these guys on the outside are the partners that are doing band fills. They're interleaving QSOs. They're working multipliers, and they're constantly adding more QSOs per hour. So most of the time, I tell you lately with the propagation the way it's been, it's almost 24 hours it's almost 48 hours of four operators. It's really a challenge. So this is the original station set up for SO2R with 6600s flex radio. And you can see this is the RTTY setup because of the way it's set up. And we use roller ball mouses, so you can see why in between these two screens, the DI screens for clicking, you can just roll back and forth. And we use only mice, very little keyboards when we do RTTY contesting. We use roller balls. And we use right click as, enter sends message, left click select station. This is actually me when I would operate SO2R. So here I am with the stations just set up SO2R with me operating. And I set up a little surface next to me so I can see the scoreboard. to see who my competitors might be. This is what it looks like present day. I switched to some 34-inch monitors that are actually curved, and now you can get more and more stuff on here. This is actually I used in the digital contest, the new ARRL Digi contest, and I'm operating SO2, so I'm actually SO2R, so I'm actually on opposite intervals on 2 different bands. And all you do is just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if you do this on FT4, you are really moving. It'll really drive you crazy. But I'll show you more in a bit. This is actually the same setup but with RTTY, and I love the real estate. And this is actually for a sideband contest, SO2R. This is a simple SO2R cabling. It's very simple with a flex radio. This actually, I'm going to show you this south antenna. This was an ad that we made that really added a lot of QSOs. And actually, when I do SO2R, say on 40 meters, I'll have one side on 40. I can have up to 3 antennas at once. So if the band is open, like this morning, I did a CWT at 1300. I don't know if I worked any of you guys or not, but on 40, I'll have 3 antennas. So I'll have one aimed down at Florida, Georgia, that way, and I'll have one out about 75 degrees to the New England, and I have one straight west. I have the stack aimed straight west of California, because there's a lot of guys that get up early and they like to get on. But I do that for NAQPs and sweepstakes, because here I am in the middle of the country. You really got to have all these tools, and that's what I use those stack matches for. The best way to combine antennas when they're aimed at different ways is so that you don't end up with I've got to think of the right word here. Well, it's a filtering. I'm trying to think of the name of it. But anyhow, you end up with very clean patterns in 3 different directions. Oh, comb filtering. You can think of a comb. If you actually had antennas on the same tower and you rotated them different directions, you'll end up with comb filtering in combining. That's why I only have all the antennas stacked and they always aim at the same direction. So the automation, to keep the station simple, to me, automation is a key to anybody's station. It really minimizes the amount of wire and and lightning damage possibilities, because you can run a lot of stuff wirelessly. So some of the tools that I use, I mentioned I use a server, so every station is a client. And I use a Green Heron Everywhere software, which is actually free, but of course you have to buy the device in order to be able to use the tool. But every station is a client, and the programming will not allow you to select the same antenna that anybody else has got. The other thing I do is, because I use N1MM, it has packets on the network, and what happens is it's talking to Green Heron Everywhere. Green Heron Everywhere is sniffing the network, and when it sees that radio needs to just changed, it switches the antenna switch to the proper band to follow it. Another tool that I found, and maybe some of you are aware of this, especially with the steppers, it was like, how am I going to have a stepper client, as a server, and then have it as a client, so I could have it, I could control the steppers from everywhere or anywhere from a client. There's a piece of software called PST Rotator AZ, and it can be used for a lot of different things. But one of the things that it does is that allows you to connect to a stepper antenna, and I had a lot of them. I still have the one monster, and you can then have a client off of it that will follow the radio, and it'll tune as and it's all done, on the network. So I just want to run through how I would set up an SO2R screen. This is actually the old stuff, but most of you are familiar. So you got 2 entry windows at the bottom, and but you can see the Green Heron right here where I got my mouse is the actual antenna switch for the 12-port switch, and right here is actually the filters that automatically switch and follow. And then up here is the actual antennas and how you can select them and rotate them. But as you switch bands, by whatever means you do, you can type in the frequency, or you can just click and it'll jump to a frequency, or you can click on a spot and it'll jump to a frequency. It'll just, the antennas will follow. So here's all of the antennas as if we were going to be on all the bands at once, which we would never be. But in green hair and so forth, so if on I said I had 8/8/8 on 10 meters, and right now it's currently aimed at, this would be aimed at South America. So let's say it's an early opening, you might shut off the bottom antenna by just clicking the green, this green thing, and then it would go off and you'd combine the two antennas together. And then later when the opening is maybe higher angle, you'd shut off the top antenna, and then the two bottom antennas would be. So you can see the 15-meter antenna, there's 3 of them here, so it's 7/7/7, but the bottom antenna is off. So it's early, maybe an early opening. But here's just an example, like 20, I just have the low antenna on. On 40, there actually is another window you can open up, and you can, you can actually operate those two antennas out of phase. And that's very cool because I can be very loud in neighboring states because it just goes straight up and right straight back down. And then here's the monster. And the way I have this up, there's a top DB42 and the bottom DB42. The way I have this set up is you can just click the number here. Oops, I didn't mean, well, I did. But, and then there's, I have programmed in Europe, East, West, I'll have JA, I'll have Caribbean, South America, or LU, or PY, LU, things like that. So they're just quick clicks if you're running. Generally, any of the stacks are either kept on Europe or they're kept on JA. Just probably the same that you guys would do. So then the filters, here's kind of a close-up of the way you can program it. All this you can program yourself. This is a PST rotator AZ, and you can see all of the how you select it as to what bands you want to be able to use it on, and then it just tracks along with that controller. So then a lot of my station is dependent upon the network, the computer network, because the radios are all on Ethernet, and so is, of course, all the computers. So here's all the things I have on the network. So yeah, I have a security system, a fire alarm system, camera systems, of course, spotting networks, just like you would do, all the radios, the computers, and then the Internet of Things, the IoT, the Green Heron and the stepper controllers. So this is just a block diagram of all of the stuff that would go into on the network. Now, I showed you 4 positions, but actually on the other side of the shack are another 4 positions. And of course, there's VHF stations over there, EME stations. And so all of these are part of the network. So I'll show you what actually happens is there's a router, and then there's a managed switch that is programmed so that what I can do is when we have guests, the guests are on Wi-Fi, everything else is hardwired, and then they're actually isolated from each other. My daughter actually lives in the house. I'll show you that picture too. And then she can stream videos and everything, and it doesn't affect anything. It's completely isolated from the radio and the operator's traffic. I mentioned the skilled operators having pilot management. What I've done is I select operators that have always scored well in any QPs and invited them. And I found a group of very socially acceptable, very nice guys. And they come in, and the more we operate together, the better we get. And I have them by groups. I have RIDI guys, I have phone guys, and I have CW guys. And there's some guys that might go between the two, but there's preferences between every operator, which I'm sure you understand. Of course, there's team skills. When you operate interleaving, the guy that's running hates to be interrupted. But the being interrupted is okay, because the guy that's interrupting you is working a multiplier that might be worth 7,000 points, or later in a contest. So everybody is super enthusiastic about trying to interleave. The problem occurs if you might lose your frequency, which I'm sure you've run into yourself personally. And so you worry about that. And the guy will just have to say, hey, I'm going to lose the frequency. I'm going to lose the frequency. And so the guy that's the partner always has to know, only call people you can get on the first call, and do it very quickly. Use all your skills. The other thing is the super check knowledge. You guys all know what super check is. That's you have all those calls in your software, your logging software, that just pop up. But also anybody that operates for a while and does contesting knows who all of the stations are that are active. So that I call it super check partial in your head. So they all have that knowledge. So here was the Luso Tower project. This is actually what I ended up deciding to do. Put the 80-meter Yagi, which was 3 elements. And then I talked to JK about building a 1217 long boom Yagi. And because of course, when I take the monsters away, I lose, those were 5 elements. And so I wanted something that would at least be as good as that. And then I wanted to add a 10 and 15 OWA, which give me more distance between the existing antennas. This was the existing when it was on the 50-meter tower. So it's sitting above, you can see the 50-meter OWA just below it. And those are, by the way, K3LR WA3 FET design. And I bought all 33 antennas from him. And of course, we had to put them together and put them up there. But that's quite a beautiful antennas. That's a 3-inch boom, and it's a reinforced boom. And then, of course, the 80-meter Yagi, I took it down because in a storm, I thought it was going to tear down the tower. So I just decided to take it down. This is actually what if you look on every element, there's one of these tornado tuners. And so what that allows me to do is tune each element. And so there they are hanging off the end of each element. Loading coil. This is actually the 59-foot boom, 4.5-inch center. What was really good is the Luso max is also 4.5 inches. Reflector 84 feet, get the, hairpin match, special tornado coils. And then what I'm doing, I actually operate the 80-meter Yagi wirelessly. So that I don't have any wires running out. The only wire going to the Luso tower is the 1 5/8 and the 240 volts. The rest is done wirelessly. So each element is individually tuned. The Yagi is tuned for maximum gain. What's really cool about this is I have the 4-element Foursquare, and then I have this, and there are different polarities, and we can operate in band and hardly interfere with each other. So the guy could hear something on a horizontal antenna that you may not hear as well on the Foursquare and interleave. It's pretty cool. It works pretty slick. So, by the way, I needed a boom to mast clamp, and got JK antennas to create that, and also create the special clamps for the 4.5-inch pipes. He created them. Yeah, and just so you know, DX Engineering makes the clamp that you buy and I buy for 2-inch and 3-inch, and I like it because it's about 360 degrees of clamping. And I wanted the same thing on that Yagi, but it'd have to be 4.5 inches. So that's what JK did, and really awesome. This is actually the Mega antenna. He calls it JK 1217 Mega. So it's 6 elements on 17, 7 elements on 12. It's a beautiful antenna. Really works well. Highly recommend JK antennas. You can see the SWR. Take a look at it. You can hardly see it on there, and the pattern is awesome. The other thing that when I called Tim up, K3LR, and I said, hey, I'm going to do this, and this is what I'd like to do. He says, well, hey, we redesigned that antenna in 2018. And I don't know if you've ever heard a presentation by Greg Orty, W8WWV. He's done several presentations at the antenna forum at Hamvention, and he's really, really a bright guy. And if you'll notice, it says this note contains the construction dimensions for N08D. That is the actual owner of DX Engineering, just so you know. So this is the Yagis that he has there. And I'm going to tell you, these, this Yagi is better than the Yagis I have up. And I've thought about taking down those Yagis and put them to this design. It's just so impressive. The pattern is so clean. Look at that. It is just awesome. So how did I make this work? I used the 1 5/8 out there. And from VA 6AM, I bought 2 triplexers, one in the shack, and then it splits and goes to the 3 filters. So I have a 80 meter, a 15 meter, and a 10 meter filter that go to, to the antenna switches. And at the site of the Luso at the base, I have another triplexer, and that directly feeds the 10, 15, and the 80. So I'm going to just kind of go over this, but I've done presentations on this before, but getting a permit is quite an interesting adventure, and I'm sure it is in San Diego and in California as it is anywhere else. But through the first time, it was really kind of awful, and I learned as I went. If you ever have a problem, call K1VR Fred. He is absolutely the best guy. He may partner with some local attorney that you have, but he is a great guy to have on your team. When you're going to, and I'd suggest you have him on your team as soon as possible if you get any sort of pushback at all from your zoning and building department. But anyhow, long story short, I had when I built the station, I ultimately end up obviously getting a building permit and doing everything I needed to do. But I give kudos to Fred for making that happen. This time they had changed the code because they thought that they were going to try to fix the code that allowed me to do it in the first place. And actually what they did is they made it worse. And because they said, no, you're going to have to come in and get a variance, you blah, blah, blah. And because they put the limit to 36 feet. And Fred says, well, first of all, the way they've worded it is illegal. He had all these appellate court ruling. This is at the federal level. He says, we've won this. He says, I can just show the state's attorney for the county. And ultimately, long story short, because it's a little longer, we ended up getting the permit, but we actually went through a process with them that Fred has never done before, which they agreed and went through the variance process and issued the permit. So this was the drawing that I submitted to them, and then the actual permit. And then we had to have all these hearings. And you can see all these hearing things. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. So I ultimately ended up got by the Zoning Board of Appeals, got it approved. But then it turns out that they said, if you want, the engineer then said, for the county says, well, we can't issue a permit until we get a stamped drawing from a structural engineer, from a PE. And of course, you guys are familiar with this in California. I'm sure they're in every state. But he says, we want an Illinois structural engineer, a PE. Okay, fine. So, and how they became so smart about all this, because I never run into this before, is that all the cell towers and all of the wind generators that have been, the wind turbines that have been put up, they've learned now, they've learned a lot of things technically about doing ground samples and all this kind of stuff. So here I had to hire a geotechnical engineering firm to do earth sampling. And so here's actually, and then I also found out, because I went to Roan Tower, I had to buy the Roan 65 for the 6-meter EME. I looked on there, I said, I need a stamp drawing for this. And they said, fine, we'll get it. And on the stamp was this Tower Engineering Professionals in Raleigh, North Carolina. I called them up on the phone and they said, yes, we can get you a permit or a stamp in any state. I said, well, you're my company. So the only thing that turned out is the Luso Tower needed to be reverse engineered because they wouldn't accept any Chinese engineering. And so I had to get enough information from China to be able to have them, what is the tubing, what are the welds, all this kind of stuff. And 375 pages later, we got an engineering report that allowed us to put this up. And so this is actually the structural analysis report and the stamp that went on it. And so here's all the drawings that I got. You can see this is where the 80-meter Yagi was at the very top. At point C here is where the 10 went, or the 15. D is where the 1217 went, and the E is where the 10 went. So, and if you look here, there's a basket. Well, there's a platform here you can stand in, but there's a basket right here where all of the cables come straight down and feed into there when you're raising and lowering. So I got it issued. This is what it looks like. No big deal. That's the base. I put up a 150-foot tower, and that's the base. And so these are all the things I had to do. And this is when we started the hole. And it had to be perfectly square. So we, took our time and we did it carefully, measuring across, make sure it's all flat. And the only thing, once we got it down to that point, then we had to put in the lightning protection devices. So we actually ran into the water table. Now in the wintertime, the water table's within 6 inches of the surface. So this was the right time to do it. It was in August. So here we are putting in the lightning protection, then putting a soil back. You can see the metal tabs sticking up. Then we lower the tower, the base in. Now I want you to take a look. See how the Kubota is being held by the New Holland? I'm not sure who approved that, but whatever. Nobody. No, anyhow. So it had to be within a 1/16 of an inch, because a little bit off, by the time it gets to the top, you don't want it off very much. So they had a engineering level that they used, and they very, very carefully. And that was my cement guy that did all the cement work there on the left. And so he was very careful about these guys. And Dave, the guy that's looking down the hole there, he's dug every hole that I have on my property. He's a really great guy. So this is what it looked like. And then I had a welder come out and he welded those tabs on for the lightning protection. And then I got two guys, a couple of steel workers out of the Union Hall, and they came out, and we'd had all this rebar already prepped, and they did that in one day. I was so impressed with them. They were awesome. And literally the next day, well, I had called, this is the county engineer right here, this guy with the black shirt. The guy in the yellow has got the remote control, and he's controlling the cement pump. And you can see the cement truck backed up, and he's pumping it in this. It goes way up and then down, and we had to control it very slowly because we didn't want to take the power cement and actually move that base of that Luso anywhere, because we wanted to keep it carefully. This is Andre. Andre came up from Arkansas. Andre's put up several Luso towers, and I didn't want to make any mistakes. So I brought in a guy that's put in many of these, and he came back 3 times just to make sure that we were doing this correctly. And he actually, you'll see him again when they're assembling the tower. But here they are working away, getting it filled very carefully, very slowly. Look at the trucks backed in. Put 110 cubic yards of concrete in. I know. This is what it looks like when it's done. And of course it had to be, like a cone, let the water wash away, from the rain. And then you can see there's a gap between the plate and the cement, because that's where the cables need to go. This is the 6-meter EME base. And of course, this is the shack, just so you know. And over here is a kind of a garage, and then here is actual shack with there's a kitchen and that sort of thing in there. So the Luso Tower arrives. They shipped it. This is another story, but I'm going to keep it short because I don't want to keep you up all night. But they shipped it in a container that you could remove the lid. So we removed the lid, and out comes the Luso. And this is the counterweights. There's 2 10,000-pound counterweights. They actually balance. So you had to know the weight of the top of the antennas, because those counter. And then of course this is a rotator. This is at the base. The whole tower rotates. It's pretty cool. I like their marketing. Lusso, it's got K9CT on there. I like it. And so we had to wait for the cement to cure. So we waited at least 30 days. And here we are. Yeah. How many of you remember, have been to Hamvention and seen Lusso Ma, this young lady here? She was actually the plant manager. She's an engineer, plant manager for Lusso in China. She now lives in Tokyo and she's in charge of sales and marketing. And that's why you see her. But she's an engineer and she flew in and that's Andre, and he had a helper. And of course, they worked together putting this together. And without this, it probably would have taken a couple days longer. But they knew exactly what to do. So you could see here's the crane lifting it in place on top of the base. And of course, I had a JLG so that we could easily reach to connect the counterweights and attach them to the sides of the Lusso. This is the rotator. And so there's a programmable controller right here. These are all relays. Obviously, that's a motor and a gearbox. You can see that drives the base. And right here is how it tells, it sends pulses to the green heron and lets it know where the tower is. Again, you can, another picture of it. Of course, there's a lid that goes on this. What I did find out is when it gets to 10 degrees, it doesn't work. So I have a heater that's a thermostatically controlled heater, so that when it gets down below 30, it's thermostatically turns on and heats that inside so that the antenna will continue to rotate. Otherwise, you'll be sitting there aimed at obviously where you don't need to be. But it's pretty cool. And I use green heron controllers, and it ramps up and it goes and it ramps down, and the 80-meter Yagi hardly wiggles. It just kind of goes very gradually around. This raises and lowers. Obviously, it's using the counterbalance of the weights. These are the antennas. So you got the, and I built, what I loved about this, I ordered all the parts from K3LR or at DX Engineering, and I cut every piece personally by hand and built these antennas. It was just a riot building the antennas, and boy, do they work. This is the 80-meter Yagi. And of course, it had to be put back together. It was just sitting out there kind of in a deconstructed state. I put it all back together, tested it, and then I hired another company, the company called TowerWorks. He has a 140-foot boom truck, so it was perfect. Actually, at the height that it is right now, this is at 60 feet right here. And so I can get a JLG, and I've done this before. I've worked on this antenna when I was tuning it, and I just go right up to it. So I can lower this down and get to it from a JLG. Now I keep this antenna down except when we're operating, because I don't want any problems. You know, they always say about 80-meter Yagis, you're going to have to fix it sometime. So it's better to keep it closer to the ground. But that's you can see that's a 15, that's a 12-17, and then that's the 10. So that's what it looks like when it's up. Pretty cool. And then this is a little video thing. So you can see that is the Tornado Tuner is a coil, balanced coil. And it's so what I do is I figured out like at 210 is like 30 30, or excuse me, 35-25, and it's 50 kilohertz wide. That's the way I've tuned it. So here it is out at the base, and here's a triplexer I told you guys about, and a switch down here that allows you to switch between the triplexer and the contest antennas, and then the 12-17 for DXing. And of course, there's a UPS out here, and a power supply, distribution panel, green heron, and then here's all the green heron RT21s. The bottom one actually rotates the antenna or the tower, and then these three control the director, the driven, and the reflector. And this is what it looks like. So here I am up at 140 feet with the DB42 that I had taken down. but I just gives you a little insight as to what it's like around my QTH. So just to the right side is Europe, right over here is Europe. And right here is straight north to the Luso. So you can see the Foursquare for 80, and there's the Luso about 300 feet away from the Foursquare. And you can see where the trench all the way back. So here it is. This is what it looks like when you're driving down the road. So you wonder, what do people think when they arrive here? They go down the road past this place.
Yeah.
I just love these pictures. So, but it's like a park there. You know, I try to keep it mowed and keep it looking nice. There's the basket that the cables come down. And the one thing about putting all the antennas on different levels is the coax goes at different rates. So you have to, I will not raise or lower this tower without being at the base and just watching, because it has to. And the other thing, if the wind is above 15 miles an hour, that can be a problem too. So if it's windy at all, so that's why I just leave it down or wait for a day that it's not so windy. I'm not so worried about it if it's 30 or 40 miles an hour, but when it gets to be 50 or 60 or 70, then you need to be concerned. And so I just leave it down because wind gusts could cause problems. See how it just slows down, creeps? Because there's a lot of inertia there with that 80-meter boom. So anyhow, I had another problem, and I don't know if you guys have seen W2GD and K4ZA help me with the original installation. And you probably know GD is a great contester, and K4ZA actually is renowned for all the construction techniques. He wrote a book. ARRL sells it on tower construction, and he writes an article every issue of NCJ. Anyhow, these guys came out, and the Foursquare consisted of HBX towers, Roan HBX. Well, over time, they just the bases gave out, and so this is a design that K3LR, NR5Ms, actually several other people had used. And I called up Tim and I said, guess what happened to me? I had a tower blow over. Well, not only that, then we had another storm, and then 2 more towers went over, and I only had 1 up, so I had at least 1 vertical. But I said, so what are you guys doing about that? And he said, well, we've gone aluminum. We've already done this. So I talked to him about it. You can see where the base is split open. And I think what happened is over time, the water would get in that and then freeze and then break it. But anyhow, he turned me on to this Universal Towers. This is what he uses. And so here I am ready to put them up. I had to come up with a base that would work. So I had them custom made. A friend of mine, my actually neighbor just down the road here, made these to fit right on the bases for that the Roan Tower used. This is what the pattern of the with the aluminum towers for the Foursquare. And then JK, I talked to him, and Ken said he would make those sleeves, and then we talked about how to weatherproof them so we didn't have this happen again. So here they are. He made these for me, and he said these are stronger than the tower. So so what I did is I actually lifted them up with a JLG and lowered them down, and then we welded them in place exactly where we wanted them. So there they are. What I like is this picture. We had double rainbow, and I thought, boy, this would be a picture for QST. Get the double rainbow. But boy, does that, I'll tell you, Foursquares are just really well. And of course, I told you a little story about the DB42s. I was going to upgrade them and do everything. And I thought, you know what? I'm 73. How much climb am I going to do 10 years from now? You know, because that's about, I put these up 10 years ago. And here they are, I need to rebuild them. What am I going to do in another 10 years? Well, I'm not going to be climbing the towers and doing all this work, I can tell you. So I just made the decision not to mess with them anymore. And I put up JK antennas. This is a JK40 at the top and a JK20 at the bottom. And they work really, really well. And then the other project that I just recently did, because I wanted to add more countries on 6 meters, was you guys probably know Ned and Lee, AA7A and KY7M from, because they're probably not really that far from you. Of course, they're over in Arizona, but anyhow, this is what they used. And that sublunar green heron EME AZEL system is something else. That is what they use for rotating solar panels. And what a great rotator for an EME array. So I tested it. I sketched out what I wanted to do. When I still own my company, I had a draftsman make this up so I could submit it for a stamp of approval. And here it is constructed, and there it is aimed at the moon. I thought that's a pretty cool picture. And just to finish this off, I've never won anything #1 world. And in 2023, we won CQ Worldwide RIDI DX #1 world, #1 North America. And these are the guys that did it. Just an example of my guys. So there's some success associated with the station over time. And I'm really proud of these guys for doing that. Anyhow, I've covered a gazillion things tonight, and I'm open to any questions you might have or whatever you want to do. So thank you very much. I can quit sharing here, and there we go.
Craig, I had a quick question for you. Those large antennas, 7, 8 elements, what sort of beam width do you have with them, and how frequently do you have to readjust their bearing?
Well, that's a good question. So I learned that I needed to use different antennas for domestic contests right away. It only took a couple of sweepstakes to make me go, oh my gosh, this is too narrow. So that's why the DB42s, the Monster, I actually use other antennas or the multiple antennas so that I can actually increase. But for DXing for Europe, unless you're working a DX station, because of the signals come in so distributed or maybe spectrally dispersed that as long as you aim at the center of Europe, I think you're going to get pretty much all of Europe. I mean, let's face it, that's the most important thing. Or JA, the beam width is narrow, but boy, everything's loud. I mean, if I aim it at you guys, I'll work a lot of guys that are not even in a contest. I'll just say you're loud. You draw attention. like somebody says to me earlier, if you want to work a lot more guys in a contest, you just got to be loud. So it's the antennas that make the difference. But the narrow band beam width is a problem domestically. I'll tell you that for sure. And so a lot of the guys, for instance, on VHF, like the 6 meter stacks, the guys that go crazy will put like 5 element stacks, up the side of a tower and then switch them on and off as to right where the arrival angle is for whatever that opening is. But the 5 element, is pretty wide. So if you get an opening to California, you're going to get all of California from north to south. The thing about 6 meters or anything like that, though, is usually the openings are not that wide. They're very, very narrow. It's just you got to move the Yagi to where it happens to occur. And you can watch the clouds and you can see how they drift by watching. If you've looked at DX maps, you can see where they cross. And you can see where the cloud is and then where your antenna needs to be aimed. So I try to use, like on 6 meters, try to use lots of multiple antennas to try to catch all of the openings as they occur. But you're right. 40 meters is not a problem. 4 elements is not a big deal. in terms of covering quite a bit. But once you start getting 6, 7, and 8 elements, for instance, 10 meters, it's very narrow. If we get an opening, I can usually tell the difference. Like, yeah, let's say it's a domestic contest like NAQP, and you guys kill us on the West Coast because you go over our heads because the skip is so long. You just go right over and work the East Coast guys. I can hear you guys, I can hear the East Coast guys, but getting your attention because I'm not loud enough. And so when the MUF is as high as it is right now, you guys really can kick our butts. You know, when the MUF goes down, you know, when the sunspot cycle starts slowing down and 40 becomes the main band, then we're in good shape here. So to compete, you know, a lot of it is, you know, just the timing, you know, what propagation and what antennas do you have. And of course, so you'd always tell somebody, well, the more antennas you have, well, how many antennas can you put up? It gets to be an impractical problem. It's a dilemma. But of course, the more antennas you have, the easier it is to cope with these situations. But I think it's just a matter of being aware. Like NAQPs, if I aim at Washington State or VE7 or something, that's what I'm going to get. And if I start hearing California come in, that means that the prop is actually changed, and I just bring the antenna down a little bit. But the trouble is, and of course, there's a lot more Californians than there are VE7s, although there are more lately than there have been. But it's just, you just have to be conscious and then move the antenna because it does make a difference.
Well, that was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. Anyone else have any?
Hello, Craig, Dennis, and 6KI, one of
Yes,
the men
sir.
behind the curtain at WA6TQT.
Yeah, and thanks for all the cues, by the way. I was
Yeah.
looking at all the calls when we started. I also saw Glenn, K6NA. Him and I served on the NCDXF board for many years together. I guess he's a member of your club too. So
Yep. We don't see much of them down here, but anyway, we're all getting up there. And get rides at night to the club meeting.
yeah,
That's how you know you're getting old.
yeah. I get it.
Anyway, yeah. And yeah, thanks. Do you guys what do you do, like, for you insure any of your stuff, or you just self-insure on all this stuff?
I'll tell you, State Farm is your friend. What I've done is those are accessory structures, and so it would cost probably $100,000 to replace a tower. So what I've done is I have the base insurance on the property, and then but the shack. So you got to go. It can't ever be over the limit. So if you get hit by a tornado, you're done.
Yeah.
You're only going to get whatever you said you have for the property and the accessory structure. So right now I have 400,000 on that. It wouldn't cover replacement of it at this point in time.
Right.
So, but if you don't have it, you're not going to get it. And now my biggest claim was 48,000. I had ice and wind. either by themselves, ice or wind, but ice and wind is really bad.
Oh yeah.
Because and the other thing is it's stratospheric. So it'll ice at the top and maybe not ice at the bottom. You know, so it's different what it does to the antennas. And then the icing gets on the elements, and then as it melts, then it tips it in the wind, then it starts bending the boom. So once it gets beyond where it's supported and it starts moving it, then you bend your boom. So
Okay.
then you need a crane. That's where the cost is, the crane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Is Hector one of the guys that's worked on your systems out there?
No, he's been here. He's never worked here.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to have Hector here, but of course Hector is really all over the place now, and he's constantly busy. But most of the work originally was done by K4ZA and W2GD. And then I had 2 other guys that did tower work at Sin. So we had 4 tower workers here all the time when we constructed it. And the crane work, so when we put up all the towers, the crane did it in 4 days. When we put up all the antennas, the crane did it in 4 days. We had it all laid out. Those guys had that like orchestrated so that like a good project manager would, you know, so but
is W2GD still doing any tower work? Is John backing off?
Well, John had to back off. I think he's to the point where you know, he took a bad fall and took him a while long time to recover from that. And then he's had issues with cancer, and
Yeah.
he's in remission right now. He's in good shape.
Oh, good. Good to
But I
hear.
think he's stopped doing it. I think K4ZA is still doing some work. The guy I'm using right now is a professional, and not that these guys were not, but that's all he does every day now. He's not a ham radio operator, but what he does is he does these high-speed trading, and he does a lot of cell work. So he knows exactly what needs to be done. He's very bright and very safe. I like safe, by the way. Safe is
He's a local guy to you?
well, he's it's 100 miles away.
Oh, it's local.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Oh,
local.
good.
time.
All right.
So,
I'll pass the mic on. Good to see you.
yeah.
I'm passing this to my husband who has a real question, but just hi, K6GO from the Foundation Scholarship Committee.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's how we know each other.
That's right. We did a lot of work, and I liked the work we did. It was good.
I'm Mike, K9CT. On your building permits, do you have a overall building permit for all the towers? Is it one per tower, and when you make a modification, you have to go back obviously you have to go back and get something. If you put up the 6-meter EME, you had to get a new one. So is that modify the original one, or is it a new one, or what?
Excellent questions. So when I first started this, I had already been through this process before, just like you probably have in iterations. And before I even bought the property, I went into zoning. I said, tell me what property to buy. What should it be zoned so that I have the least hassle? And he says, well, what are you going to do? And I says, I don't know. I might put up 15 towers. I might put up 20 towers. And he says, well, what you want to do, tell me the zoning to get. So I go buy the property, check the zoning, and make sure it's that. Then you don't have to change the zoning, which is what I did. I bought a farm. You can do anything on a farm, theoretically. So then the first thing I did is I went and asked for a variance for 20 towers. The trouble with that is it caused a lot of red flags to go up in the public, because anytime you do something like that, they send a letter to everybody. It's like they want to irritate everybody. So the first time I heard that they were having a hearing and they were going to talk about me. So I found out about this. It was a public meeting. I just wasn't invited. So I went to the meeting and I listened to all of their thoughts, and I actually recorded it, and I held my temper. I never said a word. I explained what I was doing and and I was told what to do. I was getting a variance, because once you got a variance for 20 towers or 15 towers or whatever, you never have to ask for another variance, which goes to the heart of your question. So anyhow, once I heard this and I heard all this kerfuffle, then I called up K1VR and he says, okay, you pull that. So there's a story here. I'm just going to cut it short. We ultimately ended up getting the permit. And so we didn't get a variance, we just got a permit. And the state's attorney wrote the building department and said that anytime Mr. Thompson wants to put up a tower, you issue him a permit, which is pretty cool. But I had a permit for all those towers you saw, with the exception of 3. Okay. So I didn't ever have to modify it. And I've also, I never got another permit if I had to repair an antenna or take an antenna down or change something or re-guy something. You never have to do anything because it's a repair. Okay. So then when when I went to add the south antenna that I told you about with a monster on it, I went in and I just went in and they said, here's a letter, issue the permit. They issued the permit just for the one tower. I was called in as an expert witness like three or four years later. And the head of the building department actually walked right over to me. I was the expert, and I was helping these people get a tower for their Wi-Fi or whatever you want to call it in their subdivision. So, but she walked right over to me and said, "We changed the code. You can't get a permit anymore." I said, "Okay." Of course, to me, that's kind of like a challenge. So then when I decided to do this, I knew that it was going to be something. So I looked it up online and tried to figure out what in the world they changed. And I couldn't really see anything. So then when I went in, that's when I got confronted with the 36-foot thing. So what I did is I got one permit for 2 towers. So you could have gotten one permit for 6 towers or one permit for 5 towers, just to answer your question. So whatever you do, you always want to ask for more. And then you can always, because you can get, but the trouble is there's a time limit. They'll give you a year and then they'll give it an extension. Now, everybody, it might be different in your county or whatever, your local jurisdiction, but you should always ask them how much time, and then they'll say, well, we'll give you another 90 days, and they'll do that because I've had to do that before. So in answer to your question, actually, once we got past the legalities of everything, then it was fine. You know, they've been very nice. So even when I'm building a house for my daughter right now on the same property and taking down the other house, and you're supposed to not have 2 houses on the property. And so they're allowing me to do this because he says, you've always done what you said you were going to do. So there is a little trust factor associated with it. So, you know, all you have to do is just don't burn any bridges, I guess, with these people, because they will hold it against you. And I never did. I was always very nice. I never swore. I never raised my voice. I never, nothing. Did it all professional.
Anybody else?
Anyone else have any question?
I got a
Greg?
question for you, Craig. Bud here, AE6BH. First off, thank you so much for the presentation, and then absolutely fascinating all the processes you've gone through to make this happen. Lightning protection. It's a subject that I guess some of us here in San Diego don't do much about because it's such a rarity. But I'm sure there in the Midwest, it's an issue. My experience in the engineering world, putting instrumentation systems out on oil rigs, lightning protection was a major factor of life. And with all this expensive cable, and I can see your array of polyphasers there on the wall behind you. Do you do additional lightning protection up on the antennas themselves? One of our concerns used to always be when you've got massive cable systems on the oil derricks or oil rigs and ships is the cable installation can often be your most sensitive component and most expensive component to have to repair or replace. And a direct hit with lightning can wipe out your whole cable system as much as your the antenna itself, which may or may not survive a direct hit, or protect the electronics at the far end in your room. So
Yeah.
do you do additional protection at the antennas themselves?
Well, the answer is no. Everything's, of course, the return to ground is through the coax, unfortunately. There's really no getting around it. And of course, everything's buried underground. Direct hits, everything's off, just like you found. I've had a phasing line, a 1/2 inch. All of the phasing cables are 1/2 inch helix. And I've had, you know, needle type pokes from lightning. And of course, then you have to replace everything. When you have that happen, and of course you can just take a meter and measure, oh, there it is. You know, you're done. You can't fix it.
Yeah.
You just got to replace it. So I don't know how you avoid any of that. Direct hits. I got to tell you, iteratively over time, I found now in oil rigs, you wouldn't have this problem, but if the lightning hit a tree a mile away, it would induce enough power in my other towers. And so what would happen is it would take out, say, bridge rectifiers and break down junctions. And so I kept going, why is this doing this? And I kept, because everything was grounded, or it looked visually like it's grounded. And so I really worked at that. And every time I got hit by something and I had to do a repair, I go, so let's try to even make this better. So iteratively, I've taken welding cable and on the tower bridged in between junctions and gone down and made sure it's a common joint. Now there's out from the towers in 3 directions. There's CAD welded, ground rods all the way out for quite a distance, and then they're connected together this way too. But it's all of the other stuff at the base, your controls. We got a wireless receiver. I actually quit. I got rid of using power supplies and went to solar power with batteries at the base of every tower. Because it's not connected to anything. So that's a kind of a cute little thing, just small little solar panel, little charging unit to manage the charge to the battery, and then the battery runs the controls. And that has eliminated a lot of crap that would come through the power lines. Now I have square D protection, you know what I'm talking about, in line all the way out, because when it comes up to a junction, I have something there. But I've had still stuff happen, and you can't get rid of 100%, but I've gotten rid of 95% of my aggravation and I have spare parts out the wazoo now. When a rotator won't run, I'll go out there with all my stuff. Usually it's like a stupid fuse or something, but I'm ready. I've already in my mind, I've got what happened. We had a storm last night. It was a lot of lightning, but I even leave the radios plugged in all the time. The shack just seems to be, knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on some wood there.
Knock on wood. But there's so little wiring, and there's so much other wiring in the other places that, lightning is attracted to ground. So it's not looking for stuff. So anyhow, and then everything's bonded within the shack. I don't know if you saw that on the back. I probably would have had to point it out, but there was a lot of bonding and straps and stuff like that in between. That's all for lightning. It's not for anything else. Just
cool.
Common bus.
Well, thanks again. Fascinating presentation.
Yep. I like your call because the OH2BH, you and I are cousins in some way, aren't you?
No.
Hey, Craig, I had a question for you. If I
Greg.
could.
All right.
Yeah, Greg, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a Greg WA6YLR. I love your station. I'm probably going to dream about it tonight because I've got a little pea shooter station in the corner of my bedroom upstairs.
Okay.
But I do like the idea of the way you're working with teams, the way everybody's working together as operators. And my question, I think, is related to that. I noticed in your background on the top shelf, on every workstation, you've got a bellhop bell. Ding, 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 ding. What do you use that for?
Multipliers.
Oh, is that it? Multiplier.
Yeah. We have a rule in WPX, you can't start until you get to 750. So there's a lot of anxiety in the shack. Everybody's always going like this, waiting like there's a bell there. And then when they get to 750, it's like a big party, and they grab the bell and they put it down.
Sounds like fun. Okay.
Oh gosh, do we have fun? Oh
yeah.
man.
Okay.
I tell you, when we have a RIDI contest, the guys talk the whole time so that it's phenomenal discussions about what we're doing and get this guy, and because it's CW and phone, your brain is totally engaged, but with RIDI,
and really, yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just a lot of fun, so.
Sounds like a blast. Thank you.
And I think Ron had a question.
Yeah, I do have a question. Just curious. How big is that curved monitor with the 2 stations on it?
I think it's 34 inches. I could look it up, but
No, that's all right. It looked like 32 to 34. And
yeah.
Station
And what's really neat, before if you notice, they hung down before and they fit right above the radio.
Right.
These actually sit down and they raise up. So you got to, of course, with Flex, everything's remote, and they got the Maestro right by the keyboard. So it kind of works out fine for us. But, your mileage may vary depending on what radio you got. But gosh, I love these curved monitors. And of course, when you turn your head, everything's the same distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try to keep.
I also had the same issue with getting the permit. I had to have the engineer where I live talk to the engineer at US Tower.
Oh.
That's the only way I got it approved. Well, first of all, I had to deal with this planner that didn't know anything between a cell tower and a ham tower.
Yeah.
Did you go through that?
Yeah, that's the problem, actually. Like I said, when I started, I think, unfortunately, the wind turbines and the cell towers have really hurt us because all the engineering work that goes into, I mean, those guys come in loaded for bear. They got documents this high, and then they go from a ham guy and he's got this little pamphlet, and they go, well, where's all your did you do a soil sample down to 25 feet? Well, okay, no. Well, the trouble with that, think about it. When I started, I was 14, 15 years old, and you wanted to put up something, you just put up something. You and your dad put up something. But now, you want to do a soil sample, that might be as much as I spent on my entire tower ever, just for a soil sample. So if you go freestanding, so it's unfortunate. What's happened is because I can understand in the name of safety and all of the things that have come on, but it's really hurt amateur radio, especially young people that don't have any money.
Right.
Or they have money, but it's probably for food and housing and stuff like that.
Housing children.
Yeah, exactly. So
another issue I went through, because this was a sawmill, there was organic material 1.5 feet. So I had to go another foot down.
Oh.
And 18 cubic feet of concrete for
wow.
one tower.
Yeah.
And I had to come down from 80 to 60 to satisfy the city. Yeah. And it's a whole nother ball game, and everybody's probably heard it before, so I won't talk about the neighbor that got everybody together and we went to City Hall and
Right.
Yeah, all that.
I had all that too. In fact, if you want to look it up on the internet, there's TV interviews and there's all kinds of stuff. So
super. Well, thank you for the presentation. It was great. It was super. I've seen you at Visalia. I've seen you at Dayton. It's nice seeing you again.
Well, let's have coffee or a beer together. Glad to anytime. I love radio. So
Craig, thanks again for the talk, and I'm hoping maybe we can get you back to talk on VHF contesting at some point in the future.
Yeah, be glad to do that, or any expedition too.
Great, super. Thanks.
Anyhow, 73s, guys.
73.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
We have a couple of business items to attend to before we do a quick roundtable. First of all, LOTW is going to have a system upgrade, so it's going to be unavailable from June 27th till July 2nd or sooner. So just everyone be aware of that. And the other thing is our bash is July 20th at San Diego Park. And if anyone's planning to come, please answer affirmative, and so that we can have a count. This month also is our election, and we have an uncontested slate. So I'm just going to go through all of the officers and board of directors, and we'll take a common vote on everyone unless someone wants to bring up a question about anyone. For president is me, Rob, WA3IHV. Vice president is Bud, AE6BH. Secretary is Bob LaRose, W6ACU. Our treasurer, Brian Roberts, had moved to Texas. So, Brian, thank you for your help, both as a board director and as for a treasurer. And Jim Wellington, who I guess is not here tonight, K9CT, who's a fairly new member of the club, had agreed to take on the treasurership. Lou, KW6Q in the board, asked to be relieved. So we got Ray Waldemar, WA6NVL, who agreed to be a board member. And then the other board members remain Jerry Stafford, W6KIN, and Steve Handrup, K6RSH. Can we have a vote? All in favor of this slate, say aye.
Hey.
Anyone opposed? Okay, great. Who opposed? So it passes unanimously. Let's go ahead and go with the roundtable, and then we'll close off this meeting after that. Dennis, you're up.
Dennis and 6KI had some fun doing the All Asia CW contest last weekend. Conditions not so great. 10 nothing on 10. 15 was anemic. 2040. Let's see what else is going on. I guess some of us will do field day. Not sure where I'll be doing, or if we're doing anything serious there. That's all for me.
Gail, K6GO, and nothing much new, doing FT8, a little bit of stuff with YLRL, and field day at Lake Poway. You're all invited.
Mike, K9CT, pretty much the same, although I did dust off the microphone and make some SSB contacts for an opening that happened. There was a lot of people on for some reason one day, and so I worked a lot into Pacific and Japan and South America. So that was a relief from FT8 for a while. Haven't done an SSB for, I don't know, a couple months.
Randy, KQ6RS. Have been much on SSB. I did kind of join in. There was a group from Australia, New Zealand that kind of get on kind of late at night for us, joining with them. Been voluntary examining new people getting their licenses. The goal is to get a team together from the Mark Carmel High School that I mentor at, has students ready to test. We don't have to get other people to VE it. Let's see, this buoy I launched in the ocean in November of 23 is still working. It's kind of between Hawaii and Japan. And still chase after weather balloons.
Good evening. I'm Ray, WA6 November Victor Lima. And just getting ready for the field day weekend. I'll be working a satellite station. So I've got that fully automatic, ASL computer controlled, and the transceiver all full automatic. So all I need is just the microphone and speaker, and should be able to make a lot of good contacts on the satellites.
Hi, Steve, K6RSH, and I've had some medical problems, so I haven't been able to work my rig lately.
Noel, AG6KA. Since April, I've had medical, so I haven't been on the air. I'm trying to get back on now.
Donald N6 PTF. I finally got done with my move, and now I can start working on putting my tower up.
My name is Bill, K0WRB. I went out and passed all the licenses, so I have an extra license, and I've never operated a radio. And so I wanted to come here to find out what it's really about, not just the theory. And so I'm actually trying to contact the International Space Station with my grandkids. Downtown. I have a little 5-watt handy talking from Kevin. Okay.
Staff, they operate Lake Poway. You're invited to come and sit down and get you on HF.
All right.
Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Elkhorn Radio.
Santee Lake.
Santee Lake.
Santee Lake.
Also
Okay.
one at Kearney Mesa rec training.
And if you want to see what a QSL card when you talk to an astronaut. on
Well,
the
that's what I want to talk to you when I heard
Yeah,
you.
that's what it looks like.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm Jim, November 6th Victor Hotel, and my most recent activity, I guess, was the VUHF contest recently. I made a little over 100 contacts, mostly on 6-meter FT8, using an M-square loop at 10 feet. And hey, my biggest DX was VE2 land, so that was about it. But I worked over 100 stations, so not too bad.
Good evening. My name is Linda, WA6HGA, and I'm just more support for the contesters.
Michael, KB6D, nothing to report. Tom, W009. Steve, especially in 6 meters, when the Virgin Islands was on, and Victor 47 was on, and there are stations working them, and I get on, and these are stations that are 8 over 8 over 8 running 1.5 kilowatts. I couldn't work any of them. So I was about to hold a funeral for the dead bands.
Hi, this is Bob W6ACU, and on the HF side, things haven't been very good, except for the fact that Vanuatu and Kiribati, and I worked a T30 TTT on 4 bands within 15 to 20 minutes the other day on FT8. It was just amazing. And 6 meters has been pretty good, especially for the contest. I wasn't participating, but 6 meters looked like 20 meters. There were so many stations on there. I did work Belize the other day on 6 meters.
Danny, AF6.
It's only for this. Yeah.
At 6 I got another report today.
And oops, wrong way. Jerry W6KIN, still working out some antenna issues at my pad, so we're getting there.
We'll go to our Zoom people and say good evening to you. Thank you for coming, Bud, AE6BH.
Hi guys, from here, it's I got early in the month. I got I got the T30 TTT in Tarawa there in Western Kiribati on same as Bob on like 4 bands over 2 days. And that's about it, because after that we started traveling for the rest of the month, and just got home late last night. So a little bit of activity in the beginning of the month.
Greg, WA6YUR.
Yankee Lima Romeo, no problem.
YLR.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I've been off the air just as I mentioned before, I kind of have to be a little stealth at my HOA, but I took advantage of that going through the logbook, looking for people who hadn't confirmed in Logbook of the World and seeing if they were on the club log, and if they weren't there, then sending the old-fashioned QSL card. So I still like receiving those. So I'm sure there's other hams around the world who like receiving those too. So took that effort. I missed who it was at the beginning of the roundtable who was helping out at Mount Carmel High School. You're just around the corner from me. One of the things that my Elmer did when I first got licensed 50 years ago was make sure we got on the air right away. So please reach out to me if you need help finding radios or getting these folks on the air as soon as you can. I'm glad to help with that. So
yeah, that works out really good. We have we get them on both the handy talkies on VHF, UHF, but we also have an ICOM 7300, and we'll have them calling CQ on 20 meters or 40 meters, and we've had good luck with that. And pretty much every time we'll get a few stations, and they're usually, when they know it's students, they're usually very good with kind of interacting with them. So yeah, getting them radioactive. We've had have like little nets on repeaters or simplex. So yeah, I agree with that very much.
Okay, but if they need help getting a station up at their house too, I can.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, you and I can put our heads together, figure out how to make that happen too.
Well, that sounds good. All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, you bet.
Great, Steve. How are things down under? You're up next.
It's winter here. You don't want to be here in the winter. It's cold, it's raining, it's windy. Good time for ham radio, though, I guess. Hey, that was a really good presentation. I really, really enjoyed that. And I would like to have asked Craig how much lost sleep he's had in the last 20 years or whatever, laying awake at night dreaming up these ideas. I think most of us have done that with our humble backyard antennas. You wake up in the night and you go, there's a pole over there. I could do something with it. Can you imagine what he's gone through? And I especially enjoyed his discussion of the permits, because I, like many people, hams, think, why don't we just go out in the country, buy an acre of land and just throw up anything? You forget about that. There's still permits out there required. And that's quite a story he had there. So anyways, a great night. Thanks for letting me join. And Mike, Gail, and Dennis, a special hello. It's really nice to see you. Thanks for inviting me to these.
Have a good evening. 73 Ron, N6XT, you're up.
Thank you. Still getting the tower together. I found out I have to replace the cable now, which is 5/16, about 85 feet. I've talked to Skip Bolnick in LA. Don't ask me to remember his call, KY6Y, I believe. Talk to him. I'm talking to Stepper. I need to get the box. They no longer have the tube for the stepper. You have to use the box. Ordering that. I ordered that today. I'm they want $3.33 for the cable to go to the tower, and I need 250. You do the math. I need 250 feet because the tower's that far, because I had to, so it wouldn't fall in the neighbor's yard. I had to go that far out from my house. Anyway, working on that, and also the control for the tower as a power feed, and also 8 conductor to say, tell it what to do, so. That's in process. I had a glitch in my logging program, so I'm trying to fix that with WSJTX talking to it. It's not logging it. Go ahead and log it in WSJTX. So I got to transfer all that into the program eventually. But I got a lot of things on my plate. Plus, I try to keep healthy by going water aerobics. Things held me back was 2 surgeries, one in January and let's see, wait, one in January. Yeah, there were 2 surgeries, but anyway, one was a laminectomy, which people have already heard. So I'm doing what I can do with what I got. I usually people come over, give me a hand. I have one guy especially, and he's a little younger, about 8 years younger. So he does come over and give me a hand. In fact, we just put the step IR EHUs together. Now I'm waiting on everything to come in from Step IR. A great presentation. Thank you very much. I missed some of the other presentations, but this was super. Thanks. Back to you, Rob.
Great. 73 and stay well, Ron. Brian, KN6MJK, you're up.
Good evening, everyone, from Texas here. Great presentation. Really enjoyed it. Gave me an idea of what I'm going to be facing when I go to put up my tower. I only have a 50-foot tower, but here in Texas, I'm in the unincorporated area, so I'm not in a city, and I'm not in an HOA. That was prerequisite for buying the property we're at. We're on a little over an acre, and right now I've not been radioactive because I haven't gotten any antennas up yet. But I'm going to put some simple things like end-fed half-wave up, and maybe get my my old dipole back up just so I can get back on the air. But anyway, things are just settling down here and get around to that, but haven't been radioactive for a couple of months now. So that's all. I'm glad to see we got somebody that's going to take my place as treasurer. I'm happy to hand everything over, and hope to. Was Jim Wellington, is it?
Yes,
Okay.
K6SMT.
When I come back to San Diego, sometime in mid to late July, I'll hope to hook up with him and be able to pass everything off, at least give him the stuff that he's going to need to get started. That's it.
Great. Well, thanks again for your service. And I wanted to thank Lou also. Bill, I have to ask you to unmute, it says. So N6RV, go ahead. You're up.
There it goes. I couldn't get to unmute. N6RV. Well, sounds like everybody's having medical issues. Me too. I have a failed cataract surgery that is leaving me indoors. So I'm kind of sitting in my office chasing DX. Yesterday I realized the DX Club, Southern California DX Club, has become virtual. So we have no meetings. We just have Zoom meetings. And we're not an incorporated club anymore, but the newsletter goes out every month. In fact, I'm putting together the newsletter for next month. In it, we have what have we worked lately. It's a monthly account of what countries were worked during that month. About 4 or 5 of us submit their logs, and I go through and I figure out how many countries were worked each month. And this month, day before yesterday, I realized I only worked 34 countries. It was pretty bad. So I made a list of the common countries that I work every month. You know, it wasn't a contest month, so we didn't work all the normal stuff. And I doubled the count in about 8 hours, right? And it, of course, was on FT8, but I just worked everything that was just common and went from like 34 to 68 countries worked this month. So that was one thing. Somebody mentioned about the tower work, and Skip Bolnick is KJ6Y. And then another thing is the N6CA just moved to Floresville, Texas, and he just put up his LM470. He went to the city or the county or whatever it was and asked them what they needed. He said they don't need a permit. Just the only permit he needed was for the electrical, and that was it. And you know, they're in. I don't know if you know Ray Benny, N6VR, or Bob Lawson, N6RW. They live in the county near Chino Valley, near Prescott. And if you're in the county, the rule is you don't need a permit as long as the tower doesn't fall over and land on somebody else's property. So there are places where you can still go and put up antennas. let's see, Chip in Floresville, Texas, he's in the West Hills, and he started digging a hole, and it just collapsed because it's all sand. So they had to put a 10-foot culvert down it and dig and drop the 10-foot culvert until they got to the depth, and then fill it. And if you've been to Prescott, I'm just saying reasons why I wouldn't go to these places. If you go to Prescott, it has some terrible monsoonal flow in the summertime, I think, and lots of lightning. My father-in-law lived there, and I used to sit on the porch and count the strokes. And so it wasn't really a cool place to live. But Ray just lives right down the block from where my father-in-law lived, and N68Z just lives up the block from him. And the person right behind him had a 4-element stepper. Anyways, that's all I have to report. So thanks for letting me join your group.
Great, thanks very much. And I was hoping that more of the previous Southern California DX Club members would be joining us, but I guess not.
I think they will. They're just, we have like 4 or 5 that show up on the second Thursday of every month on our Zoom meeting, and I'll disseminate it again. I think they should. I go to Northern California DX Club and to your club meetings, so hopefully they'll show up.
Yeah, we try to get some interesting topics together.
Ralph, are they invited to the bash?
Yes, they're invited to the bash. Anyone coming down? The only one that is RSVP'd has been Joe, K5KT.
Okay, did you email Joe? Is that what happened? I'm going to put it.
No. I don't know how he got wind of it. I thought maybe you or Jim Shrine had disseminated it.
Jim sent out an email now that I remember. Yeah, I can't travel, so I'm not
okay
with you guys, but I'm putting in the newsletter also. So it'll be probably the 1st of July. So you'll probably get a rush from all 12 of us left.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you a speedy recovery, and thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Is there any older new business for the club? Well, we have our raffle then. You guys on Zoom are welcome to go. We'll see you next month. Or no, we won't see you next month. It's the bash. We'll see you in 2 months. Thanks very much for stopping by.
And it will be Dennis doing the presentation then in August.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bill, I'm remiss in not introducing you as the new member, so we'll let you choose the first AF6JO. And you have your choice of 6-pack of Sapporo. Those are mugs from the ARRL. Cheese balls, Merlot wine from Josh Sellers, or Chardonnay from Carmenet. So Merlot, Chardonnay, cheese balls, or Sapporo wine. Oh, you've got it. Okay, you choose next.
N6KI.
N6KI.
It is.
Please, no cheese ball leads me down to this. We'll take whatever in there.
That's the only edible part of the cheese.
I know.
You choose next.
Who's slipping at 5? I mean, oh no. There you go. I'll read it. So WA6NVL Ray. Yeah. Thank you guys. Hey, thank you for that.
Go ahead.
Wife writes that down. Thank you.
W6ACU.
Let's see. I think I'll take the cheese balls.
Oh, you get us one though.
That's it.
You get one.
Not tonight. I got my grandkids coming, so.
Oh,
A6 EO. Geo.
I hope you like the Chardonnay.
That'd be fine. Thank you. Oh.
WA6HGA.
Linda.
What is your support?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. That it? We're all done.
We're doing this talking about.
Here's an empty box. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming and have a great rest of the week.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, take a dawn. My wife's available that day. I'll let you know. It's gonna be one or two of us.
It doesn't matter. I'll just put you down for two. I mean, I want to have more because.
Yeah, you got to try it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah.
Okay, see you. Okay, Jerry. Okay, wrap it up? Yep. Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, it worked great. Excellent. I thought that was a nice little talk.
Yes, it was. Okay. How do we stop this recording? Oh, right here. You sure you want to stop recording?
Yeah.